There are those who speak and those who listen. But every so often, someone shows up who does both with uncommon purpose and an open notebook in hand. Nicole Banks is a power connector, a woman whose network doesn't just span industries, it sparks movements. For more than 2 decades, she's solved problems others run from, built what others said couldn't be done, and highlighted the wisdom of giants, one page at a time. This is Nicole's Business Notebook, a curated circle of brilliance, a behind-the-scenes pass to the strategies, stories, and secrets shared by the experts she calls friends. It's not just a show, it's a blueprint for those bold enough to build. So settle in, because the notebook is open.
Hi, it's Nicole Banks with Nicole's Business Notebook, and today I have Chris Reeves in the house. We're going to be talking about tips for entrepreneurs to stand out. He also has some really interesting things coming up with leadership and legacy of leadership, a new group and magazine that he is a part of and created and founded, and we're going to hear all about that and the importance of personal branding too. So a lot of tidbits today. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. So obviously, you are always dapperly dressed, and I think that's where we should start. So
Absolutely.
Personal branding is obviously something that you take very seriously and, something that I've heard you teach and speak on. Can you give some entrepreneurs or maybe some sales and biz dev professionals some tips to stand out and why personal branding is important in sales?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is we get one opportunity at a first impression. And that first impression starts long before we shake somebody's hand and introduce ourselves. Yep. It actually starts with the visual influence of us, and our personal brand is highly attached to that and the way somebody perceives us off of what they see. So for me, I want to come across as a business professional, someone that values details. So we already have archetypes that are already established for us in our society. Yep. And business is highly tied to the suit jacket.
Correct.
So the easiest thing that somebody can do for a tip is identify what their message actually is. What do they want people to think when they see them? And once they've got that defined, then they can start looking at what it would be to send that message. So if you're a doctor, you may not walk into an event in just a suit jacket. You may want to put something else on that represents being a doctor.
Right. Yeah, no, I think, appearance is something that people try and shy away from, or not turn their camera on and zoom and the whole bit. And I think that it's really crucial, like you mentioned, as part of that first impression. So for you, what made you decide to kind of stand on that? I mean, I've never seen you not in a suit. So for that, you kind of really stand on it, and it's kind of central to your image.
Absolutely.
Why do you do that every day?
Why? Well, it's highly tied into who I want to be remembered as. I want to be remembered as somebody that cared about the way they showed up and that was aligned with the message that they wanted to send to everybody. Now, you would see me in other clothes if you went to the gym or saw me in different scenarios. Yep. And I think that's it's important for people to understand you're not going to show up the same way in every circumstance. You may be in a different environment that requires a different appearance. Now, may I leave the gym in a suit? I may have to because I have a meeting or an event or something that I have to go to send a specific message. But while I'm at the gym, I'm definitely not working out in a suit, right?
Or you can be that guy. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, you could. So like I've got a friend that sells custom-made suits. And we always joke that the one thing that you can always guarantee to see Harp in is a suit, whether he's buying groceries or looking at a car or looking at a house, whatever he's doing, he's in a suit other than when he's working out at the gym.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, consistency I think is really important. And, to that fact, I think that's one thing that you do really well is, consistency in how you present yourself. For those who are just starting their wardrobe or, making this decision, do you have any tips or tricks for those first steps to be more like Chris?
I would say that the best place to start is a vision board. We're going to go right back to defining who it is that they want to be remembered as. What does that message actually look like? And then start breaking it down. Because I could tell you, go get a suit made, go see my boy Harp and get a custom suit made that fits your body specifically. But if that doesn't align with the message that they want, then it does them no good. So if you want to get down to the bare basics, though, wear clean clothes that fit your body, clothes that match your message. Like, that's the 3 easiest things that you can do. And then we can go into a little bit more detail by, like, what is your skin tone? Well, you probably, if you're pasty white, you probably shouldn't wear white because you might look a little bit more pale than normal. Right. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be styled and like that, but if you're just going off the bare basics, then paying attention to colors is that next step.
Yeah, I love that. I just had my colors done for the first time and making that transition and the whole thing. I was like, oh, actually, there is a difference. So, definitely it's something that you can level up and, that whole bit. All the way to the pocket square.
Absolutely.
I love that attention to details. So, you have this authentic message and, this consistency. But, what exactly are you doing these days? I know that you kind of left-turned from corporate and now you're doing your own thing. Yep. And, there's a lot of great things happening. So
we've kind of evolved. So Dapper and Fit, the image consulting business, kind of got into, we started hosting our own gentlemen's dinners, which were called the Legacy of Leadership. And the goal for the dinners was to highlight examples of what a guy could be. And we saw a lot of success in that. We saw a lot of amazing things happen as these guys would come together, shake hands, and then see them go out and grow and do other things together, which I thought was amazing. It was what we were looking for. However, I thought it was still lacking in the potential. Like, we could do more. Mm-hmm. And as the training and the image consulting thing kept going, I wasn't happy with it. I've been a personal trainer since 2008. I've worked with a lot of people on helping them with their body, helping them the way they look and the way they present themselves. And I was always running into this, I'm still reminding them of their inadequacies. And that bothered me. It bothered me a lot. And going to networking and that and talking to people about their health and their weight and what was possible. Absolutely.
Sticky conversations for sure.
Right. And that wasn't something that I wanted to be remembered as the guy that's reminding them that they're not good enough yet. Nobody wants that, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what I saw in the Legacy of Leadership was I was getting to highlight people for things that they were proud of. And we got to encourage people to learn from others and do things that might be different and get a better result from the examples of the other guys that were there. And so it clicked for me. Maybe that's where we need to be going. Maybe that's what we need to be doing, is highlighting more people. And so now the Legacy of Leadership is our entire focus. Amazing. We have dissolved Dapper and Fit. I'm still working with people on their image and their health. Yeah. But it's now a entire focus on the Legacy of Leadership. And no longer is it just for men, it's for men and women. So we can show the examples of how we can interact with each other, how we can lead in our communities to make a very positive and impactful change towards something that we can all be proud of.
I love that. Legacy of Leadership, those are big words, and obviously intentionally chosen. What does Legacy of Leadership mean to you? So
the Legacy of Leadership, what it means to me is, one, our legacy. What are we remembered as? When people talk about us, what do they think about us? It's our legacy, right? Mm-hmm. And our leadership is how we show up, how we interact, the actions that we take and the examples that we set. So I put those two together and what do I want to be remembered as by the actions that I take and the examples that we showcase to the world on the people that are out doing stuff that we can be inspired by, motivated by, and hopefully learn something from, so then we can go out and do something that might be more productive towards a future that we can all be proud of.
I love that. Legacy is a big word, and it talks about your impact and not just, today and tomorrow, but weeks, months, years,
Absolutely.
into things. So I think that, just your word choice, I think is really impactful. So what's your goal for legacy of leadership, in 2025 and going into 2026?
Well, so we've started a magazine. It's digital and in print. We highlight people, we give them another platform, another voice, an opportunity to be printed so they can be showcased in a way that may not necessarily be in existence or easily or readily available for them. They're also put next to other leaders, so it amplifies their credibility. So there's the one aspect, is the magazine. We also have a new podcast coming out to do the same thing. Now, both of these are called Legacies Unfolded, the magazine and the podcast, and they are closely tied with each other. I've written a few books to showcase who they want to be remembered as, to help them walk through that step. I've written another book called The Legacy Leader that showcases how I have gone about in the corporate world leading large groups of people towards success and development, and the steps that I took to help people get their promotions and create a life that they can be proud of. Technically, right now, we're working on, this will be the first, I'll release this to the public. We're working on a children's book.
Amazing.
And we have a new little dog in our family. He's a Boston Terrier. He's full of spunk and energy and excitement. And I'm writing a children's book right now, highlighting him as the legacy dog, to go in and teach leadership to kids on how they can learn and develop and hopefully create a better society for us in the future. So 2025 for me says, how can I make the most impact in my community by showing examples and setting a standard in which we can all live by, and then helping others have a platform in which they can showcase themselves and the things that they're proud of and how they're impacting their communities.
That's amazing. I think, for children especially, leadership is, this intangible thing in a lot of ways. And depending on what opportunities are availed to them, they might not have any sort of leadership, at all. So I commend you, taking that, burden and going in and teaching those things. But you're a dad yourself. So,
absolutely.
How is, writing a children's book with your kids? Are you reading it to them and having them be your editor?
My daughter's 14, so she's kind of in that stage right now of dad's not cool anymore, but she's actually involved in it. So she's helping me write the book, and she's very in tune with being involved with younger kids. And so she will start in that process of learning what we do and how we lead, and being a part of that process of going into the schools, helping us read the books, taking Flex, the legacy dog, with us to highlight and bring smiles and excitement into the idea of ownership of responsibility for one's actions.
I love that. And that kind of leads into my next thing, with the way that you present yourself, your word choice, what you're wanting to put in the world, you're standing on things. You are, trying to be this paragon that other people can lean on and learn from, and that whole bit. What internal strength, resilience, how has Chris came to be in that front?
Chris has made a lot of mistakes. And I think that's the beauty behind it, is because I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of messed up things, but I was willing to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm the one who did this, and I'm the only one that can change it. Now, I've been blessed to have amazing people in my life. My wife, she's been the rock that's made sure that I've kept going, because believe it or not, there's been a couple times where I was ready to pull the trigger. Wow. I was ready to be done because I felt like I was that failure, and I've walked away from some big positions because it didn't align with my morals and values. It didn't align with my standards. And when I looked in the mirror, I wasn't the person that I was proud of. But she was the one there to remind me of the promises that I made and the impact that I wanted to create. And so I have her, I have my daughter that gives me the sense of responsibility for the example that I have to set, because I know that she's watching, and everything that I do gives her permission to go do. So if I'm an asshole, if I'm the one that's doing stuff that isn't appropriate, then that's telling her that she can go do the same thing. And then that goes into bigger picture when we look at like our networking community. Yep. Well, if I'm treating people poorly, then that gives the permission to others to treat people poorly. And it's not something that I stand for. And then we go to like someone like Tab Pierce that's put me on a spot to give me an opportunity to have a platform and to develop into the leader that I want to be. Yep. And now that I've met you and you're doing amazing things in the networking community, and Dave Waltzer, and we can keep going, Blake with Ideal, like we can all lock arms and showcase what true collaboration is 100%. And how societies used to interact with each other that made this country so great.
Correct. Yeah, I think we're both passionate about networking and bringing people together. And I think, you know, kind of as another side of that coin, it's being their hype person. You know, it's always easy to find your own flaws and to focus on them too much and to not necessarily come at it from a solution mindset. And so I see, you know, in the people that you work with, that's really a focus and accountability and all of that. So, you know, how does somebody work with you? How
do they work with me? Well, the easiest thing to do is to go onto the website, legaciesofleadership.com. They can go on to social media, Leader of Legacy on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. I'm sure you're going to put all of my information in the comment section or the description. But the easiest way is just to reach out and to ask a question. And for us to start building that relationship, because I may not be the right person to help them. However, through the network that I've created, I know a lot of really great people, and we can find somebody that's appropriate to be able to help.
100%. Yeah, and I think, you know, it is about, you know, the network that we've created, the relationships that we have, you know, maintained and built and cherished. And, you know, Tab Pierce has, you know, done a lot for me too, and a paragon in the networking community. But, you know, you surround yourself with good people. You know, they say that, you know, the 10 people at your table are, you know, what are going to affect you most of anything in this world. So, you know, how, I guess, would you suggest that somebody try and find a mentor or a coach or somebody if they're thinking, oh, well, maybe that works for me, but they're not ready to kind of take that next step? What would your advice be?
My advice? Well, the first thing I would say is don't seek advice. I would say seek counsel. So in order to seek counsel, we have to identify if that person is living the life that we want to be living. Are they doing the things that we want to be doing? Because they know. They can give us the direction and the answers. I don't just go to anybody for any information. I go to Tab for business advice because he's running businesses in a way that I would like to run businesses. Same thing with the networking. I go to him when I got questions about how I should run my event or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing to do is to identify the people and what they're actually doing. And now social media is a mess because now, especially with AI, anybody can fabricate anything that they want, and we may not necessarily know if it's true.
Correct.
And because of that, we have to be even more specific and be more vigilant about what it is that we're doing, accepting, and following.
You know, I love that. I mean, you are, you know, trying to do a million things at once and, you know, support your impact and, you know, that whole bit. But there's a lot of noise outside of, you know, what you're doing. And I mean, the deep fakes and, you know, not to get political, but I mean, things are a lot more difficult than they were previously.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no, I think honoring that is you know, incredibly important. I want to go back to the magazine. So what guests are you looking to interview? Who do you want advertising partners? Like, how can we help support the magazine?
So the best thing I could ask right now is one, for the people that are in the articles, anyone that's a leader in their community, not just a man, not just a woman, someone that's just making impact. And I want to tell their story. Because we all do things in our own way that are special, and the thing that creates something even better than just being special is that they're unique. And when we find people that are unique doing amazing and outstanding things, they deserve to be highlighted in some fashion or form.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. People that are just outdoing, not necessarily looking for notoriety, but if they feel like they would have more impact, then I would love to sit down and have the interview.
Amazing.
As far as advertisement space, any business that wants more reach, more credibility, being set next to people doing the most, showcasing that they're positive leaders. And if they can align with that and want to have more reach and they want to make more impact in their community, then I would love to discuss opportunities as far as advertisement space.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, it sounds basically everything that you're doing is lifting people up and making legacies.
Absolutely.
You know? And so, not to kind of tie it all in, but I think that that's amazing what you're doing. So, as a final sort of note for entrepreneurs, who may not have that sort of stand on it sort of mentality like you do. What would you say to them to get them more to your point to help them help themselves?
What would I say? Well, we keep talking about it. I keep bringing it back up, and I think it's still the same message. Until an individual defines who they want to be remembered as, what the end vision looks like, what their legacy vision looks like, they're going to wander around and just make aimless guesses. So the best thing, the counsel that I would give them is to define who they want to be remembered as. And this gets a little morbid, but if they could just put themselves at their own funeral, sitting up in the rafters as a ghost, floating around, listening to people talk about who they were, the impact that they made, and define what they would want people to say about them. And I know a lot of people, when I give them this task, they're like, well, I don't care what people have to say. And they should. Maybe they don't necessarily put a whole bunch of weight to it, but they should care because it influences the actions that we take. And those actions are what lead us up into who we're going to be remembered as. So if somebody wants the easiest yet most difficult thing they could possibly do to make the biggest impact and to have something to stand on is to define what that end looks like. And then they can work backwards. What does it take to be this? Well, I'm not here yet. Well, what does it take to get to there? And then they can start having that little bit of an action plan to work up towards being that person that they can be proud of in their end.
I love that.
Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's homework assignment for me to kind of work through that. And, I love that wisdom and tidbit. And like I said, for anybody that knows you, they know that you stand on things and that whole bit. So happy to see the evolution and what you're doing and Dapper and Fit to Legacy of Leadership and, the magazine. I got a copy and read through it and, really proud of it and we're proud of what you're doing in the Valley. And I know you're gonna have some events coming up and, different things. So what I'll say is you want to make sure that we follow Chris, Legacy of Leadership, to make sure that we are up on the events. I will be there supporting and, helping how I can. Is there any sort of last drops of wisdom, any nuggets, mic drops?
Of wisdom. Well, there was something that I wanted to give you credit for when I came here. I remember when you first got here, and I had a meeting with Dave Waltzer, and Waltzer was like, hey, do you mind if we go to this other networking thing? We're having our meeting at the same place. And I was like, sure. It's like, do you think it's going to be a good idea? He's like, yeah, man. I'm like, and I think he dropped his little coin word, shit's yeah. I was like, all right. And that's where we met you. Mm-hmm. And I remember the conversation that we had that I told you that you needed to connect with some specific people. And that if you wanted to do the things that you said you would do, which you are, and it's amazing to watch that you would connect with Tab Pierce and Catherine Pierce and some other people in the Valley, and you've done that. And I think credit needs to be given to where it's deserved.
Thank you.
And we get exactly what we deserve from the actions that we take or don't take. And you have taken the steps needed to grow into the person that you are today. And I hope that you're proud of the things that you're creating and doing, because I've seen you blossom.
Thank you.
And it's cool to know a little bit about somebody before they started doing some of these things.
Yeah.
And the future's bright. Let's just be honest. Like, you got some amazing things going on. You're on a podcast.
Yes, I have a podcast. I wrote a personal journey book, so I'm in the author space too. Have my own networking groups now that have blossomed, and on that, through a connection with Catherine Pierce, I'm now co-owner of My Biz Coaches, and tons of amazing things are happening on the tech side too, and sky's the limit. And so thank you so much for the kudos, and having you and Dave there. The first time I was like, oh well, these are power networkers. Like, oh, I better mind my P's and Q's and say the right things. And you were welcoming and magnanimous, and had some wisdom, and kind of, oh, you need to meet this person, You didn't have to be nice. You didn't have to be,
Well,
and
I would like to throw a little bit of challenge in there. I hate the word nice, in all honesty, because I think niceties are just icing on top of a cake. I was kind to you, and I treated you the way I would want someone to treat me, because that's what I want to see out of this world, is for us to help each other and lift each other up. Now, would the legacy of leadership be what I want it to be if I didn't treat you and help you achieve what you wanted to achieve?
right.
And I think that's our opportunity and the example that we're getting to set for people, that we can collaborate and we can all hold our own space and lift each other up to create something that we can all be proud of.
100%. And I think that, makes, networking here in Phoenix different is, collaboration from the top with Dave and Tab and you and myself and DJ Barton and, these other, leaders in the community. It's been amazing to see, the collaboration and us wanting to work together. And I think that's so special. And to your point, kindness goes, so far in the world and in business and in networking and the whole bit. So I agree with that challenge and, that whole bit. So again, Chris, I really appreciate you and your kindness, and your wisdom and, maybe inspiring the whole personal branding a little more every day. So I appreciate the push.
It's a step-by-step thing. Like, Rome wasn't built overnight. It took a long time.
Yep.
And your vision will change as you go, and you'll start doing things and you'll try it and you'll be like, this worked for a little bit, but it's not who I am now in the direction I want to go, because I've learned a little bit more. So I think one thing that we can all hold on to is we do the best we can with the information that we currently have. However, we should always be curious and seek wisdom from others, because we can always learn something from each other.
Yep. I love that. And on that mic drop moment, thank you so much, Chris, for coming out and being a part, and really appreciate and so proud to see the evolution in us and, the networking here in Phoenix and beyond.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So this is another episode of Nicole's Business Notebook, where we're breaking down with subject matter experts all the things that you didn't know that you didn't know. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Nicole's Business Notebook. Subscribe and follow for more tips, insider secrets, and hard-earned wisdom, so that we can all do better business together. See you next time.